Neil Patrick Harris is an actor, singer, dancer, and magician? That's right. Turns out there might be a lot of things you don't know about this multi-talented performer who's been on our TV screens since his childhood. In 1973, Neil Patrick Harris was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but he grew up in the much more rural town of Ruidoso, raised by his parents Ron and Sheila. Harris told Rolling Stone, "It was a very small town, almost Native American to be honest, fishing in duck ponds, running through pine forests. We would create our own little world. I remember running through major woods where there was no trail but knowing exactly how to get home. You knew in a sort of tribal way which pine tree meant make a left turn here." Around the age of 10, Neil Patrick Harris landed his first role in theater. Although he grew up listening to Broadway soundtracks, this was his first experience on stage as Toto the dog in The Wizard of Oz. Harris explained in his memoir, Choose Your Own Autobiography, that his older brother Brian and friends auditioned to be Munchkins in the play at Tularosa High School, and they asked him to play the dog. The role started the young boy's love of performing, and by the time he was around 13 years old, he went to a drama camp at New Mexico State University. Brian told Rolling Stone that the primary reason Harris was sent to the camp was to give him a dose of harsh reality. Mostly the idea was to let him see that he's not the only actor out there. Instead, Harris impressed people at the acting camp so much that he ended up landing a co-leading role in the feature film Clara's Heart, opposite Whoopi Goldberg. It led to a slew of acting opportunities and a sudden, unexpected career. Harris said, "It happened for me from such an early age that it all seemed like a lark." As a 15-year-old, Neil Patrick Harris landed a lead role in Doogie Howser, MD, which famously was about a precocious teen who was so good at his craft that even adults were impressed. Sound familiar? Harris remembered the show's creator, Stephen Bochco, talking to him about the high-profile part. Bochco reportedly said, "This is a lot of work and a big deal, and with the good will come a lot of the bad, and you need to brace yourselves for what it means. This is going to be a great wave. It will inevitably crash, and the question will be whether you have the desire to paddle back out, get knocked over by a bunch of waves on your way, and wait for the next set." His prediction proved uncanny. The show was a hit and lasted 4 years, but when it ended in 1993, Harris seemed washed up before he was really even an adult. Reflecting back on the series, Harris told Entertainment Weekly that despite Bochco's warning, he couldn't have predicted the lasting effect of the show on his career, both good and bad. After ending his run on Doogie Howser, MD, Neil Patrick Harris was in a tough spot. Though he was well recognized for the starring role, he admitted to Glamour, quote, "That transition was a challenge, from my late teens into my early 20s. As the actor revealed to the New York Times, I was only getting jobs I was offered, not the ones I was auditioning for, because I had previous baggage. That career wasteland lasted for nearly an entire decade. But then an opportunity came from screenwriters John Hurwitz and Hayden Schlossberg. The two dreamed up, quote, an alternate universe version of Harris to cameo in their film Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Though they had a backup plan in the form of Ralph Macchio, Hurwitz really hoped Harris would sign on. When we were writing it, we were hopeful he'd understand that the joke wasn't at his expense." In an interview for Cinema Blend, Harris said he received a call from his friend who auditioned for the comedy. The friend said, "You're written in this movie. Neil Patrick Harris is a character in this movie." Harris ended up taking the part, and it changed the trajectory of his career, opening new doors for him in comedy. He later returned alongside his husband for the 2011 sequel, A Very Harold and Kumar Christmas. In an interview for Rolling Stone, Neil Patrick Harris talked about his experience as a young boy growing up in the southwestern U.S. He remembered in elementary school, "I had crushes on boys that were a little bit older than me. Playing footsie with a friend under the table at school was very charged to me, but I didn't know then what to do about it." Looking back about how society changed as he grew older, Harris admitted, "I think it would be easier to make that leap at that age now, but not back then, in a tiny town in the middle of the mountains of New Mexico." Once he began to make a name for himself in Hollywood, Harris held off telling the world about a major part of his life. Then in 2006, he came out as gay. He said that talk show host Ellen DeGeneres helped pave the way for him, adding that since his character Barney on How I Met Your Mother was such a total bro, fans had no problem separating Harris from his work. Barney was so overtly dude, coming out didn't make that falter at all. Neil Patrick Harris remembered traveling with his parents as a young boy to visit his grandparents in Albuquerque, New Mexico. For every visit, Harris told ABC, "I'd save up my allowance and I'd go to the mall to the magic store called Fool's Paradise, Great title. And buy whatever I could. Little packet tricks. And you don't know the secret until you buy it. On the drive home, I would get to sit there and learn how it was done, and I'd get the inside information. He then incorporated magic throughout his career. For example, Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother was known to show off a trick or two. Harris also once directed a magic show in New York, The Guardian reported. When appearing on talk shows, Harris loved to impress the hosts. He told James Corden,
"I just love promoting it. I love seeing magic. I produce people's shows. I was the president of the Magic Castle for 3 years."
As far as his favorite magic trick, Harris told Vanity Fair that the Great Flydini is one of the best. The bit performed by Steve Martin on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson showed the comedian pulling out objects like, quote, eggs, a lit cigarette, a ringing telephone, a Luciano Pavarotti puppet out of the fly of his pants. This is the story of how Neil Patrick Harris met his husband. He first spotted actor David Burtka while in the audience for the musical Gypsy on Broadway. Harris told Rolling Stone about watching Burtka on stage, "You couldn't stop looking at him even though Bernadette Peters was singing her face off 10 feet over." Thanks to a mutual friend who played Cupid, the two men met for the first time. Burtka admitted that with Harris always magically appearing at the same spots, he first thought, "This is weird. He keeps showing up places. I think he might be a stalker." In 2021, Harris posted a photo on his Instagram commemorating the 17-year anniversary of his first date with Burtka, writing, "Best decision ever." The couple tied the knot in Italy in 2014. Part of what makes the pair so special are their similarities, like sharing clothes, but also complementary differences. Harris told Rolling Stone, "David is a heart-driven person, and I am a head-driven person. So we balance each other out in that way and challenge each other, because he demands that I feel more than I want to, and I demand that he think more than he wants to." Thrust into the spotlight at such a young age meant that Neil Patrick Harris grew up with fame and the pressure that comes along with it. So he uses a number of self-improvement techniques to help manage the pressure. He told Glamour he's tried group therapy and, like Oprah, even walked on burning hot coals at a Tony Robbins motivational seminar. He said, "I'm a therapy guy. I have weekly therapy sessions, even to this day." Harris further explained his self-work in an interview with ABC. He detailed that his twice-a-week therapy sessions were, quote, "to work on himself and on being a good parent. It's not like I have this big gaping hole I need to work on. As a parent, I want to be better than my parents were at raising me, and they did a great job. I think it's important to work on yourself, whether it be through podcasts or through therapy or through conversation." More than just therapy, Harris also likes to create peaceful spaces to reset from any stress. Vanity Fair reported that Harris even has a specific part of his house for meditation. To grow their family, Neil Patrick Harris and David Burtka decided to have children. Burtka explained on The Wendy Williams Show that the couple used an anonymous donor for eggs, which were then given to a surrogate who gave birth to twins. One of the children is biologically Harris's and the other Burtka's, though the two men don't know which is which. Their two kids, daughter Harper and son Gideon, are adorable and total fashionistas. For example, Harris often posts their first day of school outfits on Instagram. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Harris explained the difference in parenting styles compared to his husband. "I talk to them like they're adults, which drives David mental. I try to teach them large picture, complex thought. He's like, dude, they're 3. Burtka admitted, "I have very maternal instincts when it comes to kids. Neil is better at doing tasks sometimes, but you know, it's a good balance. Neil is ready for them to start thinking on their own and making good decisions." Combining his love of magic and being a dad, Neil Patrick Harris became a children's book author. The Magical Misfits children's book series encourages kids to read through inclusive storytelling. And in 2020, he released the 4th and final book in the series called The Fourth Suit. Harris explained of the conclusive story, "My real goal with the book was to make it as much of a diversion and a kind of escape as possible, while still maintaining a sense of values and of character and moral codes." He also noted that his 2 children love the books, especially when the author reads them aloud. Harris was thrilled because he revealed, "I grew up working in a bookshop, and I just really have an affinity for authors and the stories that they can tell." For slightly more adult reading, Harris penned an autobiography, but instead of the typical life story in book form, Harris created his memoir in the Choose Your Own Adventure series format called Choose Your Own Autobiography. Harris told the Los Angeles Times about his specific choice of storytelling, "I found that in thinking back on my life thus far, that it was markedly random. There were all kinds of weird stories that included things I learned, things that changed me, but also weird once-in-a-lifetime things to recount." Every year, Neil Patrick Harris, his husband, David Burtka, and their children Harper and Gideon go all out for Halloween. Some of the best years were 2016, when the family dressed up as Star Wars characters, and 2014 as characters from the Batman universe. Even with fans wondering every year what the family will dream up next, Harris told USA Today he didn't feel any pressure in deciding on costumes. As for the reason he loves to go all out, Harris explained, "I make it a point in my daily life to encourage people to go do fun things, whether it be theater or magic or adventures. I think Halloween is one of the great adventures every year, so I'm a big proponent of haunted houses and dressing up. And if we can take a picture and encourage people to want to go out and get in the Halloween spirit, then I'm all for it." At first, Harris and Burtka were the main creative forces behind the impressive group costumes. But as Harper and Gideon grew older, Harris admitted, quote, "We have to get approval now from 4 individuals." When it comes to vacations, Neil Patrick Harris often has one place in mind: the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida. He and the rest of his family visit the theme park every year around the Christmas holidays. Our kids have grown up appreciating and valuing not only the amusement rides, but the architecture and the Imagineering that goes on, both in front and behind the scenes.
I love stuff from the Haunted Mansion.
Right.
Haunted Mansion in Disney is like my favorite.
Even when Harris and his family aren't in Florida surrounded by the Disney characters, the experience continues. He revealed to Vanity Fair that he and husband David Burtka constantly played Reedy Creek Radio at their home when their kids were in preschool, a radio channel that was dedicated to the music of Disney theme parks. As a result, Harris said their home often feels like the queue area for a Disney ride. When Harris learned that the show that made him famous, Doogie Howser MD, was getting a reboot on the streaming service Disney Plus, he was joyful. He told Today, "Anything that can promote Imagineers and Disney theme parks, I'm all about, because I love that stuff." Writer John Cameron Mitchell co-created and starred in the off-Broadway musical Hedwig and the Angry Inch in 1998. The show, which The Guardian described as a bittersweet story of an East German singer who seeks rock stardom in the US after botched gender reassignment surgery, was a huge hit. Mitchell turned the story into a film and years later revived the musical with Harris in the lead. Mitchell said, "We knew eventually Broadway would come around to it. The revival was an opportunity to bring the story to a wider audience. And Neil Patrick Harris was the perfect person to do that. He appeals to so many people and he was keen to go a bit grittier, and he triumphed." More than just rehearsing lines, Harris went all in physically for the performance. According to Rolling Stone, the actor lost 21 pounds to play Hedwig. While the extreme transformation gave him 8-pack abs, it came at a price. He said, "I'm so intent on looking feminine, on changing my silhouette, but I'm running out of energy and it's affecting my mood. I need to eat more." Looking back at his run on Broadway after the fact, and after his Tony win for Best Actor in a Musical, Harris told The Guardian, "It was probably the most I've ever grown or learned or been at peace while rehearsing, while performing, and post-experience. It certainly has changed my views about things." Given his charming smile and welcoming personality, it's not surprising that Neil Patrick Harris is extremely generous in his personal life. He and his husband David Burtka often donate their time to various charities. Even more, both men have taught their children about giving back, and the entire family helps others. Harris told Yahoo, "We are involved with a couple of organizations that help deliver meals to those less fortunate, so we make it a point to do it right before Thanksgiving with the kids, and we will do it again during the holidays. We live in Harlem, so there's a lot of people in the area nearby that could certainly use the help, and it gives the kids a valuable and much-needed perspective on life." Another way that Harris helped out was for an event with Bono's Red Charity to support its Project Last Mile initiative. As a reward to help support the initiative to deliver medicine to the most remote regions of Africa, Harris and Burtka raffled off a night on the town with themselves. After Harris suggested the prize, he said Burtka fully supported it because, quote, "He does way more charitable work than I do, so he understands."
Then we'll go eat at one of my favorite restaurants. You and a friend, me and my husband. Our time together will be delicious.
According to Look to the Stars, Harris has been involved in dozens of other charities and causes from New York to Los Angeles. As a veteran actor in TV, theater, and film, Neil Patrick Harris has built up an impressive resume. His longest role was as Barney Stinson on the buddy sitcom How I Met Your Mother for 9 seasons. The show was a huge hit, thanks in part to Harris's character. As a result, the actor earned an impressive paycheck for his time there. According to Celebrity Net Worth, at the height of the series, Neil earned $225,000 per episode of the show. It adds up to an estimated $5.4 million for just a single season, and that's not counting royalties and syndication revenue. Adding to his bank account was Harris's Tony-winning performances on the Broadway production of Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Plus, as an author, Harris has created multiple streams of income, all of which adds up to a lot, and as of 2021, he was worth an estimated $50 million. With some of his earnings, Harris invested in a gorgeous Harlem townhouse, which he showed off in Vogue's 73 Questions video series. The 5-story brownstone was once a bed and breakfast until Harris and David Burtka bought it in 2013 for $3.6 million. After renovations added a library, theater, gym, wine cellar, and playroom, Harris and his family finally moved into the dream home in 2015. In 2021, though, Harris and Burtka put their 4-bedroom, 8,000-square-foot home up for sale for a reported $7.325 million. So what does the next chapter of Harris's eventful life hold? We can't wait to find out. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Nicki Swift videos about your favorite celebrities are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.